Hey all, here are OS Reviews. Today we're taking a quick look at the Trigkey G1. This is another mini PC going for around $250, so it is a relatively entry-level model. It is using an Intel Gemini Lake J4125 processor, so up to 2.7 gigahertz. It's a quad-core chipset, and it's called the Green G1 because it's trying to claim that it's a bit more energy efficient. With that being said, it's not necessarily more so than the other mini PCs that we've reviewed. It is using an SSD from 128 or 256 gigs of built-in storage. There's two configuration models. It connects up to 4K external monitors, and it does have 8 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. Now, interestingly, this model actually does still have an active fan. It also supports external SATA to SSDs if you want to further expand on the storage, and it does have dual band 2.4G and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, but it's not using a Wi-Fi 6 compatible chip. But again, that's expected for an entry-level model like this, and it is using Bluetooth 4.2. So that's one other thing which, like I said before, I do wish even entry-level laptops and computers would just gradually shift to Bluetooth 5. Now in the box here, it is at least an eco-friendly packaging. The mini PC itself, which we'll take a closer look at in a moment, bonus full-sized HDMI cable, as well as the AC adapter, which is accented in red using a barrel plug. Taking a closer look now at the Green G1's design, it is a pretty unassuming case, but it is overall looking very clean. The top here is made out of a polycarbonate plastic, but the base here is made out of aluminum, so overall it still feels relatively sturdy. There are some soft touch rubber feet that prevents it from sliding around on the surface, and you can remove these screws if you want to expand and switch out the SSD, for example. Otherwise, we have plenty of I/O here on the top, including some of the active fans for cooling, 2 USB Type-A ports, 2 Ethernet ports, 2 full-sized HDMI ports, additional fans for ventilation, and then finally on the front, we have a 3.5mm headphone jack. Very good placement, 2 more USB 3.0 Type-A ports, and then a Type-C port. But again, this one unfortunately doesn't support display output, nor does it work for power, so it's really just for data. A little bit of a shame and missed opportunity, but overall it is what it is. Here it is as a quick size comparison against the average smartphone that has a 6.2-inch display, so this thing is not going to take up too much space at all. Granted, I will say that the ventilation grills are on the left and the right side, which means you have to put this flat on a desk. You can't really put it sideways. With the mini PC turned on, you can hear that it definitely has a little bit of background noise produced by the fan, so it's not completely quiet, but it's also not going to be too disturbing. It turns on from a cold boot in under 5 seconds, and otherwise pretty fast in terms of just generally responding to clicking around the UI. Again, it does come pre-installed with Windows 10 Pro Edition out of the box, and I know one of the questions that folks might have these days is whether it's going to be compatible with Windows 11. And in terms of the specs, like the 8 gigs of RAM, the SSD, and storage, it's definitely meeting those minimum requirements. However, for Trusted Platform Module version 2.0, and most computers coming out in the past 5 years will have this as something that will be fine, but you do need to turn it on just by going into settings, and afterwards you can then upgrade. In terms of the built-in SSD, again, we have the 256 gigabyte variant, and we have around 206 gigabytes left, thus around 40 gigabytes, a little bit under that, has been taken up by the operating system. Again, both models can be upgraded yourself using a SATA to SSD, or you can always use a thumb drive, cloud storage to further supplement that. Sufficient, I think, for just regular basic usage. Now, otherwise it is very clean, so there's pretty much no bloatware included out of the box, and we have just the Edge browser built on in. I will point out some of the benchmark scores here first. So the Celeron J4125 is a chipset that we have seen in the past in some other entry-level computers, and again, this one is a quad-core chipset using 10 watts of power, pretty energy efficient, and has an average CPU benchmark score of around 3038. That's decent compared to some other budget mini PCs, which are more commonly using the Celeron N3450, especially for around the $200 price range, and a lot of those N3450 powered machines will get you a CPU benchmark score of around 1,900 or so. So we are talking about a 1,000 points higher on this model. So it's not going to be exactly a powerhouse. It's not going to compete with the latest Ryzen 5, Ryzen 7, or even a Core i series chipset. However, it is still going to be a little bit faster than some of the super entry-level models, and you definitely can feel that. So next, let's take a quick look at browsing the web. So in real-world usage, if we jump into a site, how long it takes to load up. not too bad. This is a full desktop version of The Verge. We actually don't have any kind of ad block turned on, so all the different elements, including videos and ads, are still rendering along. It may take a split second for everything to fully load, but definitely in terms of scrolling the page, it doesn't feel too sluggish or jumpy or anything like that. Gonna wait about a second or two for everything to load. As you can see, they're not instantaneous, but also not too bad for a budget mini PC. And overall, everything in terms of scrolling, again, is working just fine, as we can see here. Overall, the Wi-Fi reception strength is also pretty decent thanks to the, again, support for dual band Wi-Fi. No real issues, even though it's an integrated antenna. The 8 gigabytes of RAM is sufficient in my testing to open up around 10 or 15 tabs in the browser without really any issues. So I can kind of hop back and forth between these different open tabs, and they're still retained in the system's RAM, as you can see there. Let's jump into a demo here playing back a video on YouTube. I'm going to play this back at 4K resolution and see how well it handles itself. And we can then jump on in. So actually pretty fast, as you can see there, for loading this up. Even switching back and forth between the video full screen and small screen, it still is not causing too much lag or delay compared to, again, if it was powered by the Intel Celeron N3450, it would definitely be a lot more choppy, and you'll see more of that hesitation as it transitions. But the, again, Celeron J4125 is one of the slightly faster models out of the Celeron line, which again is still entry-level, power efficient from Intel, but definitely one of the better ones out of that lineup, and it shows here. We can see that as we are playing back this 4K clip, I can actually skip and go to a different portion of the video. It's keeping up in terms of buffering, so again, pretty good Wi-Fi reception. And in terms of the dropped frames, you can see here that it's actually right now not really showing any dropped frames out of the video that it's played back so far. Pretty impressive, I have to say, and that means you can definitely use this to watch back 4K videos locally and even streaming, including YouTube and Netflix, and it's not going to be an issue for this computer. If you want to open up spreadsheets, Excel, use it for homework as well as schoolwork and even some office work and productivity, it's not going to really pose an issue. Is using Intel's integrated graphics for things like video editing, for example. If you're trying to do more serious work that requires typically more impressive GPU, then you'll still want to look at a slightly more expensive, upgraded model. But for things like light Photoshop and just simple image touch-ups and editing, this can still handle that really without too much complaints. So when it comes to, again, the Microsoft Store, you can download any of these utility tools as well as quick apps and programs really without any problems. And of course, the beauty of having a regular version of Windows is you do have support for a lot of legacy apps and programs. Any executables, drivers can all be installed on here. And again, we do have plenty of USB full-sized I/O ports, so this can connect easily to any printers, any other third-party accessories. Things like Teams and using this for video conferencing, Skype, can also be handled really without any problems. Of course, you would have to plug in your own webcam, and other things, including gaming, is definitely an area where it's not really going to shine quite as much in terms of local games that you install and play back on it directly. Of course, any machine these days can really run any, let's say, retro or emulation style games, but for newer games and titles, I would really recommend keeping it light, more to simpler animations, and lighter games, maybe more oriented for mobile, can run here just fine. But if you are trying to otherwise play back more demanding games, it still is not going to be the best experience because of the limited GPU and processing power at the end of the day. But like I said from before, the beauty is these days we do have a ton of different cloud services. So let's say you are a Microsoft xCloud subscriber or even Google Stadia. This thing, because it has a pretty reliable internet connection, basically will just allow you to then remotely connect to more powerful hardware over the cloud. So overall, that's more or less it as far as our very quick hands-on review of the Green G1 mini PC. And to be completely honest, it's nothing too terribly new in terms of what we've seen in the past, with positive attributes here including its clean design, plenty of I/O for such a compact computer, and overall definitely good enough for things like browsing the web, watching back videos, also for office work, whether it's PowerPoints, Excels, or even doing a bit of coding. This can more than handle actually a pretty fast SSD that's been built on in. Really not too bad for this budget price. You can check out more details if you are interested in the links down below. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.